The Hornets win their 4th straight season opener, this time against the Rockets on the road, 110-105. LaMelo Ball was excellent. Brandon Miller did get hurt. There's a lot to get to. We'll break it all down today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks
Hornets.
For making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mehl. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. A couple things to take care of real quickly. I know you guys are at the edge of your seat. We're going to break it down soon, but we got to take care of the people. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Hornets Daily Newsletter. One step for the ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Also, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, now we can get started. Great win. They were down 18 in the first half. Doesn't matter. LaMelo Ball was a star, especially in the second half, controlling everything. Tre Mann, continuing what he did in the preseason. The Hornets get the dub, 110-105. Doug, why don't you lead us off here, man? We got to start with LaMelo with what he did.
No, they didn't just get the dub, okay? Now, if you're watching on YouTube, keen-eyed viewers of YouTube, don't adjust your television set. There is nothing wrong with the bottom of my camera shot. What do you see there? What is that, Walker? Are those fuzzy antennae? Could it be? No. There's no way. Yeah, I think you're muted. The power of the big dub hat has muted your mic.
Well, Hugo's there. What's Hugo doing? It's the antennae. I see it. Yeah, they can't be Hugo.
No. It's the big dub hat. It's the big dub hat, ladies and gents. That's right. It makes its triumphant return off the shelf. When I brought it off the shelf, I was coughing tremendously from all of the dust that was flinging off of it in every which way. But now it's on my head because this was absolutely 100% the definition. The reason why the big dub hat was created was for a season opening win, for not just a first win for a new coach, but a first win for a first-time head coach in Charles Lee, and also a LaMelo Ball performance, one of the better comeback performances I've seen from him in a Charlotte Hornets uniform. 34 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds on 50% shooting. But that doesn't really even tell the story. The story is that he drug this team in concert with Tre Mann. They drug this team to that victory. A team that had lost Brandon Miller in the first half to hip soreness and were already down 2 starters in Mark Williams and Josh Green, 2 of their bigger defensive weapons, and they were getting killed on the boards all through the first half. They were getting tremendously out-rebounded. The Houston Rockets had 19 points in the first half. They go into the locker room. I'm not sure what was said amongst the players, from Charles Lee to the players, but the Hornets scored 19 second chance points in the second half. It was a totally different team led by LaMelo Ball.
Rotate that bad boy. I want to see the W in full effect. It's over to the side. I want to see it right in front of my face.
Forget it. You know what? In honor of 34, a near triple-double, the big dub hat is becoming the big M hat for Melo today. Just today only, big dub hat, now the big M hat for that. And Mann, Melo and Mann. A couple of M's cutting it up.
Perfect. I mean, it'll be great for Mark Williams. It'll be great for Brandon Miller. I'd hold off on the just one time thing. You might need to bring that back out. Even Miles Bridges. Goodness gracious. Okay, there's a bunch of M&Ms over here with the Charlotte Hornets. Yeah, man. LaMelo looked like a star last night. I mean, you see him getting to the foul line. I think that was the big story because we had talked about it all offseason long. There was a point where you were 4 for 4 from the free throw line at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth. There were 2 trips to the foul line back-to-back, really. That got you to 8 with a whole quarter left to play. Not to mention, you get there and you shoot 10 free throws, but you make all of them. And I'm not surprised. LaMelo is a really good free throw shooter, which only enhances the point of getting to the foul line. He was aggressive. I thought he took on contact. I thought that floater was working for him. He had some nice touch on his shots in the paint. And I'm getting worked up over it. I'm getting worked up.
It's just so emotional over what's going on.
Doug, take it away.
I got a stat for you while you deal with that emotion. By the way, that's a fine. I got to find that. I got the big dub hat. I got to find the Flim bucket hat.
For crying? We can't cry on this podcast.
That wasn't crying.
This is ridiculous.
I'm going to call Flim BS on that.
This is
anyway,
ridiculous.
But I'll take it from here. So you mentioned the free throw line, and I had that down in my every Hornets box score notes. 10 of 10 from the free throw line, and according to StatMuse, that's only the 8th time in his career that he shot over 10 free throws, attempted 10 free throws in a game. And 2 of the other instances were last season in January, the final month of his season before he got injured. 2 of those performances in there. So it is a trend, the big gap there because of the injury, but it's a trend of LaMelo Ball dedicating himself to driving the basketball. And it came, I think, at an opportune time because the Hornets started this game taking a lot of threes. And I thought that a lot of them were low-quality threes that were not being generated from paint touches. Rather, they were just being generated from passing around the perimeter or just simply pulling up, maybe quick threes in transition. Lower quality threes. And you have to mix some of those in, but you've got to be able to generate the threes from the paint. And so him driving, I thought, a lot like play action in football. I thought he lulled.
Whoa, look at you.
I thought he lulled. I got Locked On NBA. Now I'm auditioning for Locked On NFL. He lulled the Houston Rockets defense into stepping just a half step back on him on these drives. And no more apparent than a 3 that he hit late in the game off a sidelines out of bounds play when he gets the handoff from Cody Martin and he gets a running start and his defender drops back a little bit anticipating him driving and he steps back, pulls up, knocks down the 3. So he was setting them up with those drives for future threes. It was honestly, I don't think this is hyperbole. That was a brilliant performance from LaMelo Ball.
No, it really was. No, you're right. He was so in control. Doug, he looked mature. He looked healthy. He was hitting shots. He was getting to the paint. He was getting to the foul line. And it's not like he even had one of his better 3-point shooting performances that we've ever seen, but it was a part of the bag, and he still put up quite a bit of those shots. This was one of the better performances that we've ever seen from LaMelo. And I was thinking about it. You go back to going into last year, there was a lot of rust that he needed to knock off at the beginning of the season because Steve Clifford kind of dropped a little tiny bomb on us at the beginning of the year saying LaMelo wasn't ready to go until a week before training camp. So it took a long time for him to get going, probably like the first 5, 6, 7 games, whatever it was. Then he has pretty much the same amount of game stretch where he looks like an NBA All-Star, then gets hurt. It goes back to not being able to get into a rhythm. When he would come back, it would be 10 to 15 games, and then he would be right back out. So you couldn't establish a rhythm as a basketball player where if he would get going, it would only be for this 5-game sample size, or realistically, it would be for this 5-game sample size of him reaching what you thought his pinnacle could be at the time. Well, now you have a full offseason of him working with Charles Lee. You don't have any of this delay. You don't have any lag. Now he's right on step with what Charles Lee is in putting into the system. Mm-hmm. He's right alongside Miles, who had a full offseason. Remember, Miles Bridges obviously wasn't having full off seasons with the team. It looks like you're going to have a lot of work with Mark Williams, who only got hurt right before training camp. So this entire offseason, you're going to have all that time with Mark, too, because Mark was running 5s. It looked like everything that happened over the offseason showed up in the season opener.
He had a block shot and a steal, and guess what? Only 2 turnovers in a game in which the Hornets committed 16 of them, total 17 team turnovers for 26 points. That was a big story that even as they made their comeback late in the game, they were turning the basketball over furiously, begging Houston to counter, and Houston could not counter. Thank you, Ime Udoka, for benching. Why did you bench Şengün? I mean, Şengün was killing the Hornets.
Well, he was, and then he missed a bunch of bunnies though. But the thing is, he was just off
because Udoka cooled him off. I mean, anyway, this isn't Locked On Rockets, but oh my god, it was crazy.
They played. So we can talk about him.
LaMelo Ball only committing 3 personal fouls. only committing 2 turnovers. You said it. He was in control of himself, in control of the Charlotte Hornets in the absence of Brandon Miller. It was a beautiful thing to watch, and hopefully it carries over. Hopefully this Brandon Miller injury isn't serious because they need him too. But 10 of 20 from the field, and to be able to, what was it? His true shooting percentage was like above 70%, despite the fact that he was 4 of 12 from 3.
Yeah.
Like if this is going to be the LaMelo that is going to carry through the rest of the season where he can have a tremendous offensive night without hitting 7 threes, I mean, sky's the limit.
It's got, a top 15 player. That's on the line for LaMelo if he puts this kind of stat line consistently. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
There's a lot more to get to in this game. Tre Mann off of the bench. He continued what he did from the preseason. Brandon Miller gets hurt. No, not the M. The M. It falls. No, put it back up quickly.
It's not the fault of Mann or Melo. It's the fault of my adhesive tape.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll get some glue or something, and then we'll make sure that sticks up there. Still lots to get to. Coming up next, Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater. It's not just sporting events. They give you all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, and Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Game time.
More Locked On Hornets ahead.
Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. Check out our new free daily Locked On Hornets newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. Get a recap on every episode of Locked On Hornets, plus an NBA article from great writers like Katie Heindel of Basketball Feelings and Mike Shearer of Basketball Poetry, and fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. By the way, it's not poetry that you're getting. He is a great X's and O's guy. He's talking about the poetry of basketball. Just wanted to clear that up. Lots to talk about in this game, Walker. So much so that we can't really even talk about it all in this episode. So make sure you're subscribed to this show and tune in tomorrow because, I mean, there were big stories like Tijan Salon, the rookie, the 6th overall pick, not getting a single minute in this game. But we can't talk about the people that didn't play because we have to talk about the people that did play and did star in this game, like Tre Mann. Off the bench, but I'm going to put that in quotations because without Brandon Miller, without Josh Green in that second half, he was basically a starter and a star turn.
Okay. Star turn. Got it. I didn't hear the N on there. I appreciate you emphasizing the N at the end. I was like, yes, we're just repeating starter, but you're right. Always be closing lineup. Tre Mann was in there, right? And I wonder, without Brandon Miller, who I have to imagine would have been in the always be closing lineup, I think he just takes Seth Curry's spot away because we saw Seth minutes there too. We did see them go small for a while. I know Nick Richards got in there at the, the 3-minute mark or so, but we did see them go small for quite a while. Grant Williams also going small again, and he had a monster bucket at the end of this game too. But yeah, let's focus on Tre Mann because Trey is continuing what he did this past preseason, 50% from the field and 50% from three-point range. At the end of this game, he broke his man off of the dribble, and you saw him. He missed the shot off of the glass, but even still, Seth Curry was able to tap that rebound out to secure that possession even more so. But Tre Mann, not only was he out on the floor, Doug, they were looking for him to do stuff, and he did. He came up with a big-time 3, of course. Tre Mann also rebounded in this game. How about 6 rebounds for Tre Mann in 29 minutes? Like, he did everything. He has been so good, and I'm glad to see that it wasn't just like this preseason blip on the radar. We didn't think that was going to be the case, but also, 24 points, I don't know. I might have gone with the under despite how he played, but 24 points is a lot. Love to see it.
Oh, yeah, totally. So 14 of those in the second half. How about 10 second chance points? You mentioned the rebounding there. Some of those were offensive rebounds. Some of those were being available off the offensive rebounds to score. Much better in the second half. I thought he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he still shot 50% in the first half on 6 attempts. But he really got it going in the second half. And then, by the way, LaMelo Ball was second, I believe, with 9 second chance points. So the guards really stepping up the rebounding. Now, it's much easier for LaMelo when he is badly missing deep three-point shots wide left and then just scorching to the rim. It was very, I'd even made a comment in the Every Hornets box score chat of like, hey, remember when LaMelo would just steal his own rebounds, steal everyone else's rebound? Like, he would rack up big rebounding numbers because he was just all over the court during that Rookie of the Year campaign. That was that play where he like scorches through the lane, grabs his own miss, but when everybody's just sort of standing around waiting for stuff to happen, he's getting ahead of everyone and scores off his own miss. So shout out to the guards there, making up some ground there in the rebounding game, because the Hornets were a little bit undersized in this game. When Nick Richards was off the floor, it was Moussa Diabate, who was he's like 6'9", 210. I mean, he's playing center, but really a name only. And then, Grant Williams, although I thought Grant Williams fantastic on Şengün late in the game. But yeah, Tre Mann, man. I mean, look, 6th man of the year on the table, but not more importantly than that is you've got a guy, when the Hornets have been dealing with as many injuries as they've been dealing with the past couple of years, and it's not ending. We're still living in this world, but they can get a win like this because you have an impact player that can step up like Tre Mann when they haven't had that in years past. They've had to look to Ish Smith. I mean, all respect to the guys that I'm about to mention. Dennis Smith Jr., Ish Smith, I don't know, sickos. You name who you want to name of guys that have been floating in this guard rotation, through the many LaMelo Ball injuries. None of them have looked like Tre Mann on offense.
No, except for, I'm going to bring up the name this time. You usually do about once a month to throw shade, and it frustrates me. But I'll bring up Malik Monk's name this time, where Malik is the guy that it was supposed to be, and I think gave you some of those flashes. But Tre Mann looks like he could do this just every single night. And again, it takes a change of scenery before he starts to realize that. But offensively, what else do you want? And also defensively, too. Like, Tre Mann.
Big difference between Malik Monk, by the way. That's what I was going to say. Like, defensively.
Couldn't help it. Had to throw some shade. Couldn't help it.
I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm living in reality. I don't know what to tell you. I watched that entire era very closely. I know what I saw.
I like that you have the big dub hat with the M, and then you're saying to me, I'm living in reality. I just like that take out of context. I just want that clip put out there. I want the short.
I wanted to mention this. I'm glad you brought this up because Charles Lee, after the game, given an opportunity to compliment all kinds of things that Tre Mann did in this game, the rebounding, the scoring, he pointed to the physical defense that Tre Mann displayed against one of the most difficult matchups last night against Jalen Green, who every time he got an open shot from 3 seemed to make it. And Tre Mann took away some of those open shots, prevented him from getting free runs to the rim, which he was getting, I wouldn't say with regularity in the first half, but he did get a few runs to the rim that ended in dunks.
Well, I mean, if this was the thing that we highlighted yesterday, I was worried about Şengün eating, and sure enough, that's what happened. He had did he have a double-double in the first quarter? It was close.
9 points, 11 rebounds, and I think all of those were unassisted. Like, it wasn't, and Green too. Like, I think they only had 1 assist in the first quarter.
No, I'll tell you what, though, man. You're right. I mean, I guess we're going back to Rocket stuff, but that might be the thing that separates. God, I'm going to have a lot of fines.
That's a fine.
I know. But that might be the thing that separates Şengün from like all NBA to fringe all-star level, is just missing so many bunnies. That's going to happen when you're a little bit shorter. When people try to compare him to Jokic coming out, it was easy, European, not very athletic, great passer, but he's shorter. Like, Jokic is just a monster through and through, and he's more efficient. And Şengün was missing a bunch of shots with Nick Richards out there, with Grant Williams out there. And so, yeah, he was still getting a bunch of rebounds, but the Hornets really were, I don't know about lucky because they made it hard, but Şengün was 10 of 22 from the field, but 12 missed field goals. When you hit 2 of your three-point attempts, like, that's a lot of field goals missed inside the paint. So kudos to the Hornets for just battling. And you're right. I thought this game was a really physical game, and the Hornets stepped up. I mean, so yes, early on, didn't get a lot of rebounds with Şengün. A lot of that is with Nick Richards. Like, they just don't have Mark Williams. That's a big deal. But I do think that this was a physical game. Early on, Dylan Brooks is right in LaMelo's jersey. You see LaMelo swat his hand away. You saw the same thing with whoever Dylan Brooks was on. It's just how he plays, just within his philosophy. And the Hornets, I like seeing that. If there is this weakness or considered lack of physicality for this team, I think they overcame that last night and actually answered the bell while also playing physical themselves.
And I'll shout out Nick Richards. I thought he was part of this too. I mean, there are a lot of game balls to give out. I mean, Grant Williams, you mentioned the three, Tre Mann scoring, LaMelo Ball doing all the LaMelo Ball things. To get a win like this, to come back from 18 against a team that is really, smacking you around in the first half, that takes a full team effort. And Nick Richards was part of that. I thought, honestly, the game started to turn at the beginning of the third quarter when Şengün just easily dispatched Nick Richards on a spin move off the post up. Like, it looked like Nick Richards had no shot to defend Şengün. And then on the other end of the floor, with about, I think, like 9 minutes ago in that third quarter, Nick gave Şengün a little bit of his own medicine, spun past him, got to the rim. And that just, I thought just sort of set a tone. And they just, the whole team got more physical on both ends of the floor with the Rockets. And then Şengün goes to the bench, and the Hornets take advantage.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I don't think Nick Richards was actually really bad in this game. I thought in the second half, even before that, because what happened, I think what got Nick Richards going was Jabari Smith. Because on that play where Jabari Smith blocks a dunk attempt from Nick Richards, and then he says, "Give me that bleep." You could hear it. The hot mic picks it up. Nick Richards grabs the board and then slams on him and then gets the last laugh. And Nick Richards is all the way wired at that point. I believe it was after that, which he gives Şengün the spin move. And if you notice, there's a timeout. They go back to the bench. Charles Lee is mean mugging Nick Richards and chest bumps him. Just all the energy in the world. Like Charles and Ashley Stroline, by the way, shout out to Ashley Stroline, did a great job last night, filling in for Shannon Spake, who will take over after NASCAR stuff, I believe. But Ashley Stroline talked about it. Hey, Charles Lee, wired dude, highly energetic. He was getting the team going. Everybody else got real excited once Nick Richards dunked it. So you're right. It felt like maybe Nick Richards was a little bit of a spark that got this team to a high emotion level that carried them the rest of the way for LaMelo to just control everything.
Yeah, let's talk about Charles Lee because we got to get to this Brandon Miller injury thing. I know people are interested in that, but I want to talk about Charles Lee because I think you're dead on there with like the infectiousness of his attitude, and I think there's another element that helped them win this game, and I'll tell you what that is next.
All right, hit the graphic. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
Doug gives you his Charles Lee take. We do have to get to the Brandon Miller stuff. He was smiling on the sideline. Hopefully that's good news, but we'll get to all of the Brandon Miller stuff. We're not going to critique
him now, and suddenly he can smile. LaMelo can't, but he can anyway.
That's right. Yeah, everybody can smile, okay? Everybody can smile. That's still to come here, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money, real sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to, 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action with Prize Picks available in over 30 states. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, which is my favorite part about Prize Picks. So your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, Brandon Miller, if you had Brandon Miller, this would have come in handy for you, and he does not return, Prize Picks does keep your lineup live. So good stuff there. Prize Picks, we appreciate them as much as anybody. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure you go to prizepicks.com or download the app. Plenty more Locked On Hornets ahead. Feed me the Charles Lee take. Doug, what do you have from Charles?
Yeah, his intensity on the sideline was great, and you could tell that it helped, just inspire the Hornets to maintain all of the platitudes that he's tried to install, right? Keep fighting, keep getting better. Don't let a bad offensive performance, which they did have in that first half, or at least in the first quarter, they didn't let that leak terribly into the rest of their game. They were able to recover. So all that's great. But I also love the confidence that he showed in his team and was explicit about that confidence despite the injuries. He put it on the record, like, I'm comfortable, I'm confident in the guys that we have out on the floor. And he mentioned it at the end of the game too, which was like, this is what I was talking about. I was confident that the people that we have, the depth that we have, they were going to step up in that opportunity. And they certainly did. And it's easy for him to have that now. I think it's great that he has that now. I hope that the injuries, calm down a little bit, because over time, I think Clifford started with that same confidence in his depth. And then by the end of his run, he's like, look at what I got. What do you want me to do? Like, I can't, so hopefully he doesn't get jaded like Clifford did because of the ongoing injury issues. But I love the confidence. I love the support. I mean, he was wearing the La France shirt in support really cool. of LaMelo Ball and saying, like, I'm doing this because I want to support my players. I don't know, is he going to take that to the full extreme? Is he going to wear a baggy jersey for Tricky Tre Mann? Is he going to carry a boombox with some of Miles Bridges' music on it? I don't know how far he's going to take this, so he's not showing favoritism, but we'll see.
Yeah, what about the Band-Aid that LaMelo had to wear over his tattoo last year? I want Charles Lee coming in looking like Nelly with a Band-Aid on his neck in support of LaMelo, if that does indeed happen. Let's get to the Brandon Miller thing here. Brandon Miller first. I mean, in the first quarter, he turned the thrunk into the dunk. That was fun. I mean, you got to go.
Had he been healthy the entire game, and that would have been, I think, the highlight, the story of the game. Well, I mean, stories.
Oh yeah, I mean, the play itself can still be highlighted. And then, I mentioned how LaMelo had a wide open three, passed it up. Brandon Miller hits the three and then goes to the foul line for a 4-point play. I mentioned, like, wait, were LaMelo's 4-point play spidey senses tingling? Like, why did he pass that up? I had a couple people in my mentions, shout out to those guys, because I think they were right. They were saying LaMelo wasn't in rhythm, and even if he was open, he saw Brandon at the top of the key, so he didn't land his feet well enough, passes it to Brandon. Brandon's able to step in and shoot the three in rhythm. Even still, like, it felt like LaMelo could just, I know he couldn't dribble again. I felt like he could just reestablish himself. It was one of those, like, nobody within 10 feet. But either way,
we've seen LaMelo take that shot.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm glad you went there, because I thought about this entire thing too. Does it show a growth in LaMelo's game? Because it was a pretty quick recognition. It was, I'm not in rhythm. Brandon's at the top of the key. Let me just give it to him. And it was a quick decision. Like, he takes an extra step and then throws it to Brandon right after that, once he realizes, this was not all one fluid motion. All that to say, Brandon had a couple of awesome plays and then goes down. We thought it might be a hamstring injury. Hornets PR tweets out that he would leave and would not return with left hip soreness. But Brandon seemed to be in really good spirits. He was standing up and cheering on his team, over there on the bench. So I don't know, Doug. It sucks to see Brandon hurt. I'm hoping this is one of those things where, just like last year when Brandon got hurt, he would come back like pretty much the next game. That happened a lot last year too.
Yeah, he seems to recover well from these little nicks and bruises, and he tried to in this game too. Like, he was sort of going back and forth between the bench and the tunnel to try to stretch that hip out, and then tried to make a return, and it was just bothering him too much. And so I think he had to leave the game because he knew that he was going to make the Hornets worse, because whatever mobility, pain, whatever was going on there was not making him a good enough player to remain on the floor. And so I think once he gets some treatment on it, he will be fine. He was on the bench laughing, cutting it up with players. So, but again, I think that does show, like, they're going to be careful with these young assets. They're not going to risk long-term health for short-term gain. And, maybe Lee is telling the truth here, that he is confident that he's confident in the other players that he has on the floor, that you could risk losing a Brandon Miller for the entire second half and still come out with a victory. And he was right.
Okay. Let's give some small shouts. Seth Curry. 26 minutes for Seth Curry, even with Brandon Miller not coming back, the ABC lineup where he played quite a bit. I still don't know if I would have guessed 26 from Seth, but he goes and hits a couple of big threes, had the big, really fun, like small tap rebound to Tre Mann to fully secure it at the end of this game to secure another possession.
Huge play.
Huge. And then Seth was even laughing like, hey, I couldn't get to it. So they were having fun out there. So that was really cool. How about, Brandon Miller not playing. So the lineup was LaMelo, Seth, Trey. Those three guys running 1 through 3. I thought that was interesting that Charles Lee decided to go that small in your backcourt where like Seth and Trey are like 6'4" and smaller, 6'3" and smaller. Yeah. But so a small shout to Seth, who also hit a couple of big threes.
Yeah, and I thought he hit those threes in a first half in which guys were struggling to knock down shots. And so if you're asking a veteran like Seth Curry to come in and play limited minutes, that's what you want him to do. And I know they weren't limited in this game because of the injury to Brandon Miller and not having Josh Green available. But I think that's going to be his role moving forward early in the season until he does pick up like a major role because of an injury, that he's going to come in for these little spot minutes, 10 to 15, and they need him to hit big shots like that. He was doing it in the preseason too. So that's wonderful to see. I'll give my small shout outs, we've done a lot on the Hornets. I want to go back to the Rockets one more time. Shout out to Dylan Brooks and Jabari Smith Jr. for being terrible in this game, talking a bunch of smack. Dylan Brooks, full-on tackle of Brandon Miller on that full 4-point play, just eliciting, just tempting the basketball gods to smite them, and they did with the help of LaMelo Ball. They gave LaMelo Ball the lightning bolt, and he smote. I think that's the correct tense of smite. When you smite, did you smite someone? Did you smote them in the past tense?
I don't know, smited.
Anyway, however it happened, and just shout out to those guys. And once again, to Ime Udoka for benching Şengün and cooling him off. Appreciate it.
Last one for me, I thought Cody Martin, how about 8 rebounds for Cody? And I thought those were, there were times, Seth Curry too, like Seth Curry had 2 boards and one
Miles,
was a tap out.
Miles in there had 8 boards. I mean, everybody in the second half was on the boards because they knew they got trounced in the first half.
Right. Well, and I tweeted this out. 56 rebounds for the Hornets in this game. I was looking up and I couldn't find it. I don't know. I need to be better at searching through Google sometimes. But I was trying to find the most amount of team rebounds in a game last year. And it was StatMuse kept giving me most all time. I was getting like early 60s though. So I was getting like 62s. I was getting 56. That would be towards the high end. I just based on an educated guess, 56 rebounds would be towards the high end. And it makes sense when you have 3 guys tied for second place at 8 rebounds. Miles led the way with 9. Tre Mann had 6. Diabate, first guy off the bench, by the way, had 5 boards. Micic, bad game for him again.
Yeah, rough.
But 5 boards for Micic. Everybody rebounded. If you played 15 minutes, which Brandon Miller did not, if you played 15 minutes, then you got multiple boards, and odds are you got like 5. So awesome stuff there. But I just thought Cody Martin hit what was the wide open corner 3, and then 8 rebounds for him, where I thought that gave them some second chance stuff. I thought, hitting the glass here, that was a big thing for them, especially in the second half. All right, that'll do it. There's M for Martin as well on Doug's face. The big dub hat, the big M hat, really, for LaMelo, for Tre Mann, for all of Hornets mankind. Thanks again for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. We'll be with you all throughout the season. Also, Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's texting you. He's also talking about the national NBA storylines on Locked On NBA. Make sure you check that out as well. I'm Walker Mehl. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. I'll recap this win again. We got some Bryce Young stuff to talk about. He's starting again. He's starting. Oh, my God. There's so much to get to. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow.